Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Health Bridge. Hello, Dr. Pedram Shojai.
Hello, Dr. Sara. Welcome back from your vacation.
Hey, thank you. And I am so excited today because we're going to be talking about health as a revolutionary act. And we have the woman, the myth, the legend, the woman behind it all, Pilar Gerasimo. Pilar, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It's a delight to be here.
Well, we're excited to have you. And I have to say, I've got this awesome poster in my home office. For those of you watching the video, you can see this totally cool poster that Pilar is behind. And it's about health as a revolutionary act. And so I want to unpack that today with you, Pilar. And I want to start first just by asking you, what do you mean by health as a revolutionary act?
Well, what it means is we live in a culture right now where the vast majority of people are either unhealthy and or unhappy. We know the statistics of 2/3 of people being overweight or obese. Less commonly known is that more than 50% of US adults are chronically ill, diagnosably ill. And then there's also the sort of mental and emotional health piece. The researcher, Dr. Barbara Fredrickson, reported that about 80% of US adults are considered to be sort of just getting by or suffering or living lives of quiet despair, and only about 20% of us are actually thriving and feeling happy at any given time. If you think about that 80% of us are not doing all that well. The society that we live in is unhealthy, and choosing to be healthy in the face of what clearly produces unhealthy people as a default requires really revolutionary choices and perspectives. So I say that being healthy is a revolutionary act, and that's the tagline of the magazine Experience Life I founded, out of the realization that it's not as easy as people make it sound, and that it's important to recognize that it is a noble and courageous task to go against the tide.
Yes, like her.
I knew you would. I knew you would. Noble and courageous, Pedram. What do you think?
That's right. It's right in line with the Shaolin warrior stuff that I'm always talking. So that's fantastic. So like, how do you start to get into that? I mean, where does one who lives in that 80% or 80 percentile start peeling away and making those kind of revolutionary stands? And where do you throw those gauntlets?
Yeah, I think the very first step is truly recognizing what you're up against and knowing that if it's a revolutionary act, maybe you shouldn't be beating up on yourself quite so much for having not managed it to date. That we live in a society where health and fitness is presented as a kind of superficial, lovely thing. It's self-discipline and willpower, and this is how you can get a bikini body in 3 hours, and this is how you can get six-pack abs tomorrow. And we're held up all of these sort of superficial, glossy images of health and fitness and told we can just follow a program or get on a diet or do a certain workout and everything will be fine. I think being healthy begins with having the attitude of truth, of reality, which is if you want to be healthy, you're going to be up against it. You've been up against it up until now, and you haven't had this information, and that's a lot of why it's been as challenging as it has. Once you make that mind shift and you decide, I'm going to choose to do this because I don't want to go along with the default, I'd like my life to be better, I want to be healthier and happier, and I'm willing to acknowledge it's going to take moving beyond the kind of conventions and traditions and habits and default choices that are presented to me every day, I think it does ignite a kind of warrior spirit in people, and I think it ignites the qualities that it really requires to make those choices, which is from a more self-loving place, it's from a more self-compassionate place, and it has a certain amount of moxie to it, like, hey, I don't want to be this way anymore, I'm willing to do some different stuff. And then you're in a beginner's mind, in a learner's mind, and you can start to realize you're going to be making a series of different choices, not just one change in your diet or one change in your workout program, but daily you're going to be confronting challenges that you need to be prepared for, and it's going to require learning skills that you don't have yet and developing capacities you might not have yet as a person. But it is a more noble approach to it, and it really, I think, frames it in a way that allows you to begin taking in information from sometimes revolutionary sources too, like Dr. Sara here, is really, you guys are both on the forefront of changing health in this country and in the world in a way it has not been traditionally framed or presented for people. So I guess the mindset is the very first thing, and from there, learning what it takes to be healthy, knowing that it may be different than what you've been told by your doctor to date or by the USDA to date. The authoritative sources may not have given you the right information, and again, that I think is sort of the first step.
Well, Pilar, I love how you are able to embed so many different lines of thinking here. I mean, you just got Pedram to like perk up because he's a warrior, he's a Taoist monk, he's an Oriental medical doctor. I mean, he's, you know, he's supposedly the left side of the bridge that we have here. And I love your moxie. I mean, I love your magazine Experience Life, the one that you founded in 2001, right? And yeah, thank you. I also, I want to get playful here. Like, I really love how playful you are with these revolutionary acts. And I want to get into some of them in just a moment. But I have to say, the thing that just really stuck with me when I was reading one of your articles in Experience Life recently was the ridiculous, or maybe the pursuit of that quiet desperation or quiet despair that you just were speaking to, of the thigh gap. Now, I don't even know if Pedram knows what I'm talking about here with the thigh gap.
Thigh gap? I particularly may have no idea what it. It's like a secret rebel shame hole we go into, but yeah.
Yeah, totally. So you may have to define thigh gap for Pedram and for the other dudes that are listening, but can you just talk about that? Like, I want to use something like the thigh gap to really understand this issue of quiet desperation.
Yeah, well, so thigh gap is one of many phenomena by which women judge their bodies, and this is just the most recent in a long line of how your body should look ideals. And it's nuts because it takes a part of the woman's body, basically where her thighs meet, you know, underneath her pubic bone, and it suggests that there should be space between them. When she's standing with her feet together, her knees should touch, and there should be or not touch, I don't know, but there should be a space between her thighs, which to me sounds very drafty. For me, I know. I mean, there are women who just physiologically have bone structure that this is, you know, the way they are. But it got to be a kind of bizarre, like skinny person ideal that then women tried to emulate and photoshopped pictures of women who typically their thighs touched there, but they would photoshop out this gap. And it became this normative ideal that has driven a generation of young women absolutely out of their minds. I mean, before it was the size of your breasts, or it was the ratio of your hip to your waist, or it was how far apart your eyes are, or, you know, whatever, these idealized notions of beauty. And they do lead to quiet despair because we're so busy judging ourselves against ideals that typically are kind of dumb to begin with, second, pretty much unachievable for the vast majority of the population, and third of all, they're like so unimportant in the scheme of really what matters in healthy living. Fundamentally, loving yourself and loving your body and finding yourself right to begin with is the only way, I think, to maintain the kind of momentum and positivity that it requires to then confront a society that is presenting negative messaging and really unhealthy choices all the time. So if you start back a step from neutral, like now you're down because you don't like your body and you're finding yourself wrong and you're worried about your thigh gap, how much chance do you have confronting all of the other messages that are coming your way? I think so many people start from a really losing place with their body, the relationship with their own body and the relationship of themselves to the rest of the world, that they feel very disempowered. And it's hard to even imagine fundamentally shifting the way you move, the way you eat, the way you sleep, the way you manage your stress, when all of your attention is on what's wrong with my body and why can't I get it to look this certain way. No matter how healthy and how fit you get, it's quite possible you are going to never ever look anything like the photographs of women and men that we see in the pictures and magazines, in part because they don't even look like that. We Photoshop them within an inch of their lives. But even if that was completely real, the truth is each one of us has a different body shape and a different composition, and I just think it's the wrong thing to be focusing on. It's a terrible red herring. It distracts us from the things that matter more, and it ultimately disempowers us from making the choices that would actually move us in the direction of being in our best bodies, you know, whatever that means for us.
Well, there's a lot to unpack there, and
I'm famous for that.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I mean, you know, for me, it was amazing coming from like a monastic life where, you know, the desires are the one thing that you want to avoid the most in life, right? And desires are what lead to suffering. And then I come into kind of the business world where I start taking marketing 101, and it's all about leveraging people's desires to sell them a bunch of crap, right? Or make them feel like crap, so then they have to, you know, have these gaps in their psyche where they're chasing these red herrings, as you say. So, I mean, that's fantastic in terms of like kind of empowering someone to do that. So then the question is, okay, where do I go from here? Like, I'm hearing this, and yes, Pilar, thank you, because I needed to hear this. Now, what steps can I take to start getting my life back and like finding happiness, on my side of the fence?
Yeah. Well, the reality is that there are a variety of skill sets. I say one of the 101 revolutionary ways is learn the skills of the healthy person, rather than just trying to, will yourself into being healthy. Accept that it's going to require learning skills. So I think, for one, adjusting the media that you're allowing into your life. For me, the reason I started a magazine is I was so unhappy with the conventional health and fitness magazines and the really negative images and the negative attitudes and the kind of falsehoods that they were peddling on a regular basis. I put myself on a media diet, and I said, I'm really not willing to have my mind and my body filled with the stuff that has been putting in front of me. That's true of TV too. It's true of really scary negative TV news, where there's really good science now that suggests the more of the conventional news programs you watch, the more hours a day you spend watching news, the less healthy and the more likely you are to die. So I think starting with what is affecting your mindset now and being willing to look at that is big. From there, I think where you go for counsel on what to eat and how to move your body and how to manage your stress, choosing really wisely those sources and being willing to consider what might have been unconventional options up until now, which includes integrative medicine and functional medicine, the kind that you guys both practice, which includes, I think, a more progressive viewpoint on diet, on nutrition, thinking rather than focusing on calories and grams of carbs, for example, focusing on the quality of our nutrition and really thinking about nourishing our bodies rather than trying to starve them. And I think that's a very revolutionary attitude. It's something we were never taught, it's like, nourish my body. What? Because what we know, like the nutrition and the information that's in your food is what programs your body to be healthy or unhealthy, energized or not energized. I think from an exercise standpoint, one of the big ahas that we've had over the past 10 years is that it's not about getting on a treadmill and going for an hour and a half. It's about finding ways to challenge your body, its strength and its capacity up to a more intense point for less time. So you could spend 10 minutes or 20 minutes a day doing something you enjoy and that challenges you, and radically shift not just your musculature, but your hormones, for example, which could make a desired weight loss much easier, make your energy better, do a bunch of things. So won't even go into stress and sleep because it's a whole different show, but I think what I want to let people know is that the revolutionary part is doing something different than you've done up until now, because what you've done up until now has gotten you what you've gotten. If you're not happy with it, accepting you may really have to toss out a lot of those old ideas and assumptions and myths, which now have been largely busted. We have much better science now than we had 10 years ago, I think, and many more progressive experts like you guys. So those are the beginnings. But, the magazine that I work on as information about all of that, and there are other magazines out there that do that better now. I think revolutionaryact.com is something we launched with the 101 Revolutionary Ways so that people could, and it's an app I should mention, where the whole idea is like daily get a little piece of information, one of the 101 Revolutionary Ways we select as a revolutionary act of the day. It doesn't really matter where you start. It might be nutrition or fitness or stress management or mindfulness or self-confidence and appreciation. You need to begin with the knowledge that this is a big deal. You're not going to learn it all overnight. You do have to start, and from starting and getting great feedback that things are changing in your body and your life and your mind, I think that's where you get the motivation to keep going.
This is great. So I want to pull out that URL that you just mentioned, revolutionaryact.com, because people can go there and they can look at these 101 revolutionary acts. They can also get your app. So I went through your poster again this morning, and I wanted to pull out some of the revolutionary acts that really spoke to me today, because I think it's interesting how day to day, what's going to speak to you is going to be a little different. So I hope you'll play along with me as I ask you to explain in a little more detail some of the ones that spoke to me today. The first one I wanted to ask you about, and this comes on the heels of listening to the band by this name just yesterday with my daughter, is Rage Against the Machine. I think this is number 3, Rage Against the Machine. So can you tell us what you mean by Rage Against the Machine as a revolutionary act?
Sure. Oh, it's so funny that you chose that one because I just got a notification from the Huffington Post that my blog on that particular Revolutionary Act just went up today. So your timing is amazing.
Oh, well done. Good.
Yeah. And I wrote about this because if you think about, so the band itself is this really kind of cool progressive band with a great amount of moxie, and the notion that we are living inside of a machine that we're often unaware of, or we're confronted with a machine that directs us in a particular direction, the conventional culture, the dominant choices, the way that we've been kind of brainwashed or mind programmed into thinking certain ways. When you go out into the world on a daily basis, think about how much you see that prompts you to make unhealthy choices. From the minute you get up and you see that you don't have the desired thigh gap and you're down on yourself. Like, I first of all would like to just say I would never want thigh gap. I don't have it. I never intend to have it. So I just want to be a model for rejecting thigh gap as a desirable trait. But so I start one down, I go out, and then I get bombarded with opportunities to eat a lot of really unhealthy processed food that's been promoted really heavily by a food industry that stands to make incredible profit margins on the worst quality food available to us. Highly processed, not only doesn't have any nutrition in it, it actually sucks nutrition out of your body, imbalances your blood sugar, makes you kind of crazy, at the same time it robs your energy. Now you're kind of poorly nourished and you're tired and you're frustrated, and then you're confronted with a world that expects you to sit on your butt at work all day long. And the more you sit, the less energy you have, the crankier your body feels, your metabolism is now suffering. You're confronted with negative, toxic people all day long because we're surrounded by people who are living the same way, right? It's just nuts. It's designed to make people sick. And by the time you get done with your day, you've been sedentary, ill-nourished, mind messed up, and then you get home and you're so exhausted that you're really the only option you have is, if you feel like, lie on the couch and watch TV, where you're now taking in even more crazy information and you're being robbed of your perceptions and you're having your mind filled with images of violence and hostility and craziness. And this is the machine I'm talking about, between the politics that allows, the incentives, the monetary incentives for processed food to be the dominant choice for food in our culture, to the realities of the way that our cities and communities are built that rob us of the opportunities to move, to the conventions of the workplace and the food and the lack of a possibility of moving, to the society itself, where, again, if you're surrounded with 80% of the people being unhappy on some level, or dissatisfied or frustrated, what is your milieu as a human? What are you living in? What is the culture that's producing you on a daily basis? That's what I think of as the machine. It can be, you think about it, in the 60s, it was like the man, who's making these decisions and putting these laws on your body. But today, I think it's much more about what are we collaboratively creating, but unconsciously creating, that's keeping us all in this state. And I want to call on people to wake up, look at the default choices, look at the reasons, follow the money for the reasons that those choices have been, handed to us. What Pedram was saying is exactly right. We've been peddled dissatisfaction as a way of encouraging us to buy into more of this, and it has worked really well. But I'm saying it's time to wake up and begin getting at least a little bit mad. It's not about getting angry and staying angry. It's about going, heck no, I have better opportunities, and moving from there.
I love that, because the counter argument is like, well, if people stop consuming and buying all this garbage, then the entire economy is going to collapse. But what they're not seeing is this blossoming new economy with like all these wonderful companies and things that are actually like good for you and healthy solutions, and there's just this wonderful world emerging all around. And so Sara, I know Sarah's booting up the librarian here, so.
I know. I want to keep asking about more acts. I'm just going to tease people that number 7 and also number 61 were the ones that I wanted to talk to Pilar about. So we may have to have her come back to talk about number 7, which is practice medicine without a license. I thought that would be a great one to talk about. And then number 61. So we'll have to do that on a future show. And Pilar, I do my little sexy librarian moment for those who are watching us on video. And if you're, just a reminder, everyone, go to healthbridgeshow.com to get transcripts such as the one with Pilar today, and also watch the video on iTunes. We are starting to put the video up. So here's a quick recap of where we've gone today in Health as a Revolutionary Act. Number 1, Pilar taught us to adjust your media intake. Really look at some of those red herrings that you're chasing after, the things that are holding you back from greatness, that are keeping you in that 80% pool. the red herrings like the thigh gap. I didn't even know that I was aspiring to have a thigh gap until I read your article in Experience Life. Number 2, choose wisely. You know, really look at the choices. Once you're getting the crap out of your life, what do you want to replace it with? So look at, you know, what kind of food do you want to bring in? What sort of information? Integrative medicine, functional medicine, for instance, a progressive approach that really provides you with a nourishing way to take care of your mind, body, and spirit. Number 3, I really like this point you made about exercise, Pilar, where you talked about finding ways to challenge your body. And I think you even started talking about hormones there, so my girl crush got even bigger. Number 4, go to revolutionaryact.com. Pilar also has a really cool app that gives you these revolutionary acts each day, and learn about these 101 revolutionary ways, some of which we talked about today. Number 5, we talked about Rage Against the Machine, and here Pilar talked about a couple of different machines, and I like how you brought that together with kind of the 60s idea of the man. Like, who's the man? Who's the man? Fighting against the man. And now we are collaboratively creating these machines that we live within, such as the big food machine and the big media machine. So we really want to be, you know, getting honest and getting very authentic about the ways that we need to fight it, not in a kind of bitchy, moany, victim-y way, but really taking back our power. So I hope I recapped you well here, Pilar, with the top 5 points. Any final thoughts that you want to share with us?
I think just that I love the way you frame that so positively, but that I think that's really the answer. It's like you have to look at it, go, oh, that sucks, and then realize something great is happening. The fact that we're having this conversation and, you know, the popularity of this information is growing so fast. I think the world is changing. I think it's a great time to be alive, and I am really excited to continue to build the revolution with you guys.
Awesome.
Yay.
Thanks for doing what you do, Pilar. This is great work. And you guys check out Experience Life magazine. Just check her out. Like, she's got so much cool stuff going on. And these are the people. This is, you know, you take a media fast from the bad guys and you let the good guys help you out, right? If you are what you eat, that also applies to information. So, Pilar, thanks for doing what you do. You're a well of knowledge, and we're looking forward to having you back on the show.
Thanks. I can't wait. I really am honored to have been with you.
Thank you, Pilar. Mwah, mwah.